Afrofuturism is a recognition on the part of everyday people that their imagination can be a vehicle for transformation. Afrofuturism is a literary and cultural movement that is typically associated with post-civil rights era, post-60s rise of science fiction writers, often defined as the intersection between speculation and liberation, born of the work of people of African diasporic descent in opposition to oppression.
We just called it Black comics, or Black sci-fi, that's what we called it. But Afrofuturism is a decidedly more dope name. My name is Tim Fielder. I am a visual Afrofuturist and graphic novelist. I did comics from a very young age, and I became a science fiction head. I was being influenced by Star Wars, Ralph McQuarrie, Alien, Ron Cobb, Sid Mead, who did Blade Runner. But you didn't see Black characters in space. You didn't see them go to other planets. People of color need to see themselves in themes and concepts that are cosmic and that expand beyond the scale of time and race. So that's what I've done my entire career.
I think one of the things about Fielder as an artist and as an Afrofuturist, he's drawn to these early stories that many people don't remember or don't know exist. And he's adapting them for a whole new generation of readers.
So I'm adapting the comic by W.E.B. Du Bois.
W.E.B. Du Bois is one of the most important Black intellectuals of the 20th century. Much of his work was dedicated to the question of African-American civil rights and African-American liberation. This story, The Comet, is probably one of the earliest examples of a post-apocalyptic Black science fiction story. A Black courier named Jim and a white wealthy woman named Julia are the last people alive in New York after the Earth passes through a comet's tail.
They survive, and it becomes apparent to them that they are probably the future mother and father of the human race.
So you have this interesting set of questions that emerge in this story about themselves, about their assumptions about how society operates, questions of structure, race, questions of power, and about what it means to sort of move forward. It's a really provocative story. Du Bois knows that white people read his work. He is often thinking about very deliberately what art can do in terms of the effort to raise and transform the status of Black people. So when we read a story like The Comet, we're really reading a scholar and activist at the height of their powers, thinking through how they can use an artistic story to create a provocative transformation for the reader.
I want people to love Du Bois's story. I want them to feel that story. I want them to feel what that man wrote. But I want them to understand the drama of it while also bringing my own angle to it. Afrofuturism deals with not just the future and the present, it deals with the past. And it does that in such a way where it takes all of the missing DNA of things that were destroyed or burned or swapped or forgotten, and we have the ability to input our own speculative idea of what could have been there. Visual Afrofuturism is inherently more radical than just words, because with pictures, once you see them, they are literally imprinted on your brain.
Why do I think people have turned to comics to tell important stories? Well, one of the things about comics is that it's very accessible. In the early part of the civil rights movement, right? When they had the Montgomery bus boycott, they created a comic book to tell that story. That circulated around the South. John Lewis read it as a very young man and inspired him to go on and become a civil rights activist. Then, of course, when he grows up, he tells his own story of civil rights activism in comic form, in part because he remembered the power of the form when he was a child.
It's fulfilling when you know that your work is not just being entertaining, but it's actually adding to public policy. I never want a kid to go through what I went through coming up. They didn't see themselves. They didn't know anyone who did what I do for a living. I don't want a kid to ever go through that. So yes, I want to continue to do this, for as long as I'm able to.